Sally, again to the Zoom room. Thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll get a couple of others to join us. But otherwise, we'll just crack on. So you had a question. Do you want to ask that question again, and then I'll try and answer it.
I was considering hearing when somebody is physically deaf. I was talking with a couple of them saying that we don't perceive hearing, it's not an outside sense. So yeah, I'd like to know how you'd phrase that, what hearing.
Well, everything's symbolic. The senses are really symbolic of what's going on in the mind. This is the teaching. So if you're not hearing something on the physical level and you're deaf or going deaf, then the symbolism is fairly obvious. You know, what aren't you hearing internally? You're not listening to your inner guide. You're shutting that off, and then that manifests in the physical. So that's the sort of obvious symbolism of it. Just not listening to your true self, your inner guide, your intuition, the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, and instead, drowning that voice out. So literally saying, no, I don't want to hear it. And then that's symptomatically shows up as, well, actually I'm not hearing physically. So generally, it's always a pointer. Everything's symbolic. It's a pointer to look within. So, well, let me look for the cause instead of some kind of external causation. Oh, well, I've got a hereditary condition, or I've got some kind of condition that affects my hearing. You look internally and you say, well, let me start tuning into the inner voice. And I've had people who do some of my course and program and stuff, and they've said after a session, it's quite amazing. I can see better. Suddenly my eyesight's better, my hearing's better, because it enhances those faculties, because we're clearing the mind. Remember, we're not really seeing with our eyes, or we're not really hearing with our ears. This is what Yeshua is saying. He says, you think you see with your eyes. You think that what your eyes report to you is true, but actually you're seeing with your mind. And quite exactly how this works, no one's really been able to figure out, because it's so mysterious. Like how does this process of sight and hearing and perception work? It's the great mystery of this world. But Yeshua is saying, well, there's no real mystery, although you don't understand the mechanism fully. It's really just the mind, and the mind is played a trick on itself. You got so lost in the trick that you've forgotten how you did it, and now you believe the trick is true, that the false is true, and so you believe your physical senses, and you believe that you really are not hearing because you've got a problem with your ears. And in fact, the problem is always in the mind. So it's looking beyond the symptom level and looking at the cause. So cause is always in the mind. So what is this telling me about my mind? If I'm deaf or going deaf, what is this saying about my state of mind? And as I said, the interpretation, is fairly obvious, which can then lead to healing if you really understand. Well, actually, I've been not listening to the voice of my true self, my intuition. I've been drowning it out. Well, now I can start to listen to it. I can change my mind, and then hearing will happen, or maybe hearing won't happen. Some people remain deaf, but the whole point is that it was a pointer to get them to look within and find a greater truth within them, rather than just staying on the physical level, trying to find explanations. Does that help?
Yeah. One of them is one person was born deaf, So I was wondering when you were talking if that's something that, is an inherited trait in the family type thing. People don't want to hear, so you're born into a family that doesn't want to hear, or is that too elaborate? It's just
Well, it's all karmic. I mean, it's all mind in the end. So it's difficult to ascribe this kind of stuff, exact causes. Someone might say, oh, well, it's because your family doesn't want to hear, or it's your past life karma. May be true, may not. There's no way of knowing. All you can do really is say, well, right now, what is this pointing me to? What's the message here? And if you can learn the lesson now, that's all that matters. So if that person says, well, it doesn't really matter what the supposed cause is. Maybe this is telling me that I'm not listening. And in fact, I haven't been listening from before this lifetime. And so I can use that as a prompt to go within and start to listen to this voice. And then it's quite useful. The deafness serves its purpose to help you to awaken, which is really the only purpose of everything here. So it's reinterpreting everything that's seemingly dysfunctional in the light of, well, how does it help my awakening? That question is a good question to ask. How does this really serve me? It's one of the questions I suggest you ask at the end of the day and end of day reflection. How does this really serve me? And then allow the answer to come. And the answer, if you open to it, will be there. Ask the question, and almost certainly, the answer just pops into your mind. The Holy Spirit will give you that answer in whatever way is appropriate at the time. I hope that covers it.
Yeah, so I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of got most of that, but it's good to hear it kind of confirmed that's.
The principle is always look within. Look within for causation, because the cause is always in the mind, not really in the external. The external is a manifestation of, or a symptom of, the mind. And so true healing is always of the mind. It's never of the body. If you seek for healing just on the surface level of the body, that's magic healing. And yes, you're saying that's not going to help you at all. In fact, it entrenches your self-concept that you are a body. And you're seeking all of these things really to confirm it. You seek to confirm that perception in your mind, and sickness and any kind of problem with the body does that very well. Confirms that you are a body, and don't you forget it, and the reality of pure formless awareness of perfect love is obscured. So it's the same message, the same principle over and over, but we just have to see it consistently. Yes, you're just saying, these are the principles which you've denied. Just interpret everything that you experience in this world through this lens of the Holy Spirit, through these principles. And then you have the correct interpretation. And then as you advance in this, you go, well, the interpretation is always correct. It doesn't matter what the situation is. I can see that, it's really across the board. Whether someone's going deaf, or they're going blind, or they've had a car accident, or they've broken their leg, or they've got COVID, or just old age. It's all projection of the mind. It's all mind spinning itself around, and then identifying with the spin. And so, that's ultimately then the answer to the problem. Simply accept back the truth of who you are, and refuse to acknowledge the illusions, then the problem is over.
Yeah, when I consider my experience from a couple of days ago about without thought there's no sensations, then does that tie in with that idea of if a tree is cut down in a forest and nobody there to see it, does it make a sound? Because if I was seeing the tree come down, I'd interpret it there. I would interpret that there's a noise or a sound to the tree falling down. So I would create that in my mind, so I experienced it. Interesting little game.
Mm. Yeah, and quantum mechanics is very clear. There is no reality in the absence of observation. This is the most common interpretation. There's a number of interpretations of it, so it's not the only one. The others are even more mind-blowing. But that Copenhagen interpretation, as it's called, is sort of the most accepted and probably the most understood. Not that very few people understand quantum mechanics. Even the quantum physicists don't really get this, because it's telling us stuff that our minds can't compute. We can't comprehend this intellectually. What it's really saying is that the world's an illusion. There is no reality in the absence of observation. Okay, so the observer and the observed thing are not separate. Oh, okay, so maybe it's all just coming from the observer's mind. There's no independent objective reality. Maybe it's all in the mind of the observer being projected out, and an illusion of a reality. You think it's there, and you make it real by your perceptions that it's there, but actually it's not really there. It's all a product of your own mind. And that's kind of scary if you're a scientific materialist, believing that the external world is real and true, to be told that that none of it's true and real. It's all an illusion. Kind of rocks your world. So they resist it. Even the quantum physicists don't really understand what that means. There's no reality in the absence of observation. What are the implications of that? Vast, enormous. Right, it's an illusion. You're making it up. You are projecting it on one level and perceiving it on another. And you're doing that so well that you've forgotten how you do it. And so now that seems to be your default reality. If you ever seen Inception, did you watch the movie Inception ever? Leonardo DiCaprio. So he's explaining to his sort of trainee, he's doing dream training. He says, well, what happens is in the dream, we project the dream outwards, and then we perceive it. And we're doing that simultaneously. We're doing it so well that we don't know we're doing it. So we've forgotten we're dreaming. And the goal of kind of lucid dreaming is to get in the gap between the projection and the perception, to create some gap so you're aware, yes, I'm dreaming this up, so that you don't get lost in the dream world. And so that's really stating this projection perception mechanism that makes up the illusion. Projection seems to come from outside, but actually it's coming from our own minds. It's our own false beliefs that are being projected out and then perceived as real, and then that confirms to us that these things are real. Therefore the beliefs are confirmed and strengthened, and therefore we project more. And so it becomes a vicious circle until a teaching like A Course in Miracles or another good spiritual path comes along and says, maybe all is not what it seems to be. Maybe you're actually inventing this. Quantum mechanics is then a spiritual path. You can awaken through it. Because if you really understand there's no reality in the absence of observation, then that's a profound spiritual principle that you've learned about the nature of reality. Still doesn't give you the truth, because the truth is beyond concepts, but it points you to what it's not. It says, well, this world isn't real. In the Eastern Vedic teaching, they say neti neti. You can only really describe God in terms of it's not this and it's not that. Well, it's not in form. It's not perception. It's not projection. That's what it's not. And if you deny everything that it's not, then what you come to eventually is the awareness of what it is, because that's what remains. And that's kind of our approach with forgiveness. Deny everything that it's not, be aware of it first, then deny it. And then eventually what's left is just the pure formless awareness of perfect love, which must be the truth. Okay, any other thoughts on that particular question or anything else?
I watched the Truman Show yesterday.
Okay, yeah. Any thoughts on that?
I watched it before. I kind of watched it differently this time. Yeah, it was quite, first time it was quite funny, but this time when I watched it, it was like, Jesus, that's how it is, isn't it? Like, person with red car drives past, person drives past. It's just like Groundhog Day. I see it here. It's just it's all made up and scripted, and yeah. But I was very moved when he got to the end of the sea and he hit the wall,
Mm,
and it's like,
mm.
it's like, yeah, wow.
Yeah, that was a powerful scene. And then the false god, the guy who's
Yeah.
kept him in prison, basically saying, "I'm your, don't," and he just goes, "Sorry, mate." Just hello. What did he say? Thank you and good night or something. And he takes the bow, and it was classic. It was just like, okay, because
Mm,
that was well demonstrated. It symbolized the ego.
mm,
That producer, it was like the ego. I've looked after you, I've taken care of you, come back to me. And he's just like, no, I don't want your fake reality anymore, thanks very much, and you can't hold me against my will. That's really the message. So he was tested. It's like symbolic of the hero's journey. Okay, he's tested, he has to go through the storm, and he drowns, but eventually the ego is going to relent, because it can't stop you from choosing. So eventually you can choose to be free. And that's what he did. But it's really, it's symbolic of great symbolic movie. Well, how do we know we're not in something like that?
yeah.
Not some like super beings. Okay, well, let's see what all these humans do in this virtual reality. They think they're on a planet. Okay, well, that's interesting, because we do. We think, this is all real, and it's, yes, you're saying the world isn't really there. You're hallucinating. There's nothing really there. It's an extraordinary insight. So, like, if that doesn't blow your mind a bit, you haven't understood it. It's
Mm,
not really there, but it seems to be there. So everything that you think based on your sense perceptions is illusion. It's not true, because it's not even really there. And it's just designed to keep you in the prison of a separate self concept that wants you to suffer and to die. This is the teaching. There's no value, there's no purpose to the world in itself. The only purpose and meaning that you can give it is interpreted through the Holy Spirit. Okay, well, you can actually use the world to awaken from the world, to escape from the world. That's the true meaning of it. But if you try and give it an absolute purpose and say, well, there's some purpose to all of this, and many people have tried. There's many dualistic theories and teachings. You come up short. It's like, well, what is the purpose? We're all here for a very short time. We seem to suffer quite a lot. There's a lot of pain and suffering and trauma. There's some pleasure. Maybe there's some nice experiences. It's kind of quite a mixed bag for most humans. Never mind animals and other things. Some of them only live a few days, and you go, well, what's the point of all of it? Like, why? Why does all this happen? And can't really answer that adequately without referencing to another reality. Then it kind of makes sense. If you have a non-dual teaching, you realize there's a transcendent dimension, and that this is a split from that. This is just an illusion, a veil covering that over. Then, okay, the purpose of the veil is to awaken from it. Now you have a true purpose, the only authentic purpose you'll find here. But if you try and make it purposeful and meaningful in its own right, you're always going to be disappointed, because what Yeshua is saying is it has no ultimate meaning. You can try and try and try as much as you like to give it some meaning and purpose, and you will always fail, because it has no meaning and purpose. That's the ultimate truth. And that's not a message a lot of people want to hear. Maybe why there's only 2 people on the call. It's quite shocking, really. It's like, whoa. Like, I thought, I mean, there's many spiritual teachings where you can kind of get away with that kind of thinking. Oh, well, there's some kind of purpose and meaning. I'm not quite sure what it is yet, but if I keep searching, I'll find it eventually. So then we keep searching and searching and searching. And in the end, it's just realizing, okay, there is no answer. There is no purpose here. And that's such an awakening experience. It's so freeing, isn't it? It's like, okay, there's no purpose here. Hallelujah. I don't have to try and figure out and try and make a purpose here, because I've been trying to do that forever. this lifetime, all my lifetime, I'm trying to find some kind of meaning and purpose here within the world. And I've failed. We fail over and over and over again, because just when we think we've got it, then that purpose fails us, because nothing here sustains, nothing here lasts. So why would an eternal loving presence create what is so impermanent, so ephemeral? This doesn't last. Everything just fades away and decays and dies. Why would an eternal loving presence do that? And the only answer is that it wouldn't do that. Therefore, it never really happened. So you can let it all go. It never really happened, and be completely free of it. So there's no fudging it. You're not trying to find, some kind of purpose in the dream world, which we've been trying to do forever. The brightest minds in human history have tried and failed, because in the end, you're faced with death, the seeming inevitability of death. Everything dies. Okay, well, what was the purpose of all of that if it dies eventually? And some people go, well, it was to have the temporary experience of it. Really? Okay, but then look at that experience, a very mixed bag. Some of it's apparently good, some of it's awful. Is that love? Is that what love would do? Why would love create something like this? And the only answer is a non-dual answer. Well, love didn't create this. So stop giving it a value and a meaning that it doesn't have, and just recognize the truth. And then you're free. Sounds awfully simple, doesn't it? And it should just be all right. But to actually accept that, is our hero's journey of awakening, to really download that, process that, deeply accept it, because you have to then accept that your entire life's a dream, and none of it's true, and none of it's real, none of it really matters. Nothing you've ever tried to do here really matters at all. Or the entire construct of your life is fake, it's false, it's an illusion. And to pursue that as you have been is just a waste of time. You're going nowhere fast, like a hamster wheel spinning on the hamster wheel. Just, you think you're going somewhere and you're just spinning around and around, exhausting yourself, and eventually you drop off the hamster wheel and you die. And you go, oh, well, that had some purpose and meaning. And Yeshua, what I love about him, he's saying, no, it didn't have any purpose in me. There was absolutely no point to any of that at all, except to wake up from the insane dream of being on the hamster wheel and say, okay, well, I can step off it before I die, ultimately. So ideally, so that I can realize this and awaken to the truth while I'm, still apparently informed, and just, stop all this nonsense and finish my time in the dream world in a happy way, a happy dream, of course, for however long I have to go. Not very long. I mean, really, if we live to 90, that's quite long. So we've got 30, 40 long time to wait. So you may as well be happy and in flow while you're doing that. There's no point in suffering. And suffering is not going to get you out of here. The more you suffer, the more likely you are to come back, because you've still got all that karma, which is just negative mental and emotional energy stored up in your mind that's then going to cause you to come back to play it out again in another life. So it's all pretty, it's pretty simple and straightforward. We just have to keep remembering it, and don't compromise on the non-dual truth, because it's, you listen. I've been listening to various teachers, Eckhart Tolle, Alan Watts. They just come into my YouTube feeds. I'm going, but a lot of it's dualistic. Alan Watts, a brilliant man, make no mistake, huge intellect, but he's teaching dualistic thought. He's saying, oh, there's some purpose to the world, and we're trying to figure out. And you can listen to him for hours, and you go, well, what is the point, Alan? Like, you can talk in very clever terms about all, but ultimately, what is the point of the universe? So, well, there is no point. That's the point. Well, that's not really a sufficient answer. It's only like a pure non-dual teaching, like Course in Miracles or Advaita, answers the question. It says, well, there seems to be a contradiction, but in fact, there is no contradiction, because only the truth is true, and therefore everything else is illusion. That means everything else, right? So non-duality doesn't mean that everything is included. A lot of people mistake it. They say, well, non-dual teaching means that everything's included. In other words, both opposites, polar opposites, are included in that. But then you have the problem trying to make sense of that, because now there appears to be an internal contradiction to what is supposed to be one and whole. You see the dilemma. Okay, well, if it's all included, then we have to include death and pain and suffering and sickness in it, and that's as real as life and truth and happiness and beauty and peace. And so now, which is real? Well, according to the alternative school of non-duality, as they call it, both are equally real. So now, how do you choose them? If both are equally real, both coming from God, both are equally acceptable, on what basis do you choose them? You have no basis to choose. Then you may as well just as easily go and murder someone as go and give them a hug and be kind to them, because it's the same. And Yeshua's saying, no, that's nonsense. That's nonsensical logic. They're clearly not the same. And intuitively, I think we all know that. It's not okay to go and kill someone. That's not as valid as going to, give someone a hug and love them. These are different, and you have to see the difference and see that there's a fundamental contradiction in order to make any sense of this world. And then make the only choice you can for the truth and only the truth. So, okay, well, I choose only love. And therefore, anything that's not love must be rejected. So non-duality means you must reject the opposite to love. Otherwise, you're in a dualistic system. And no matter how much you try and fudge it and say, oh, well, non-duality must be all-encompassing, you can't overcome that split. The split is still there. And it doesn't really make sense. No matter how you phrase it. The only thing that makes any sense is this discernment between truth and illusion, and then choose the one. Choose truth over the illusion. And that means illusion is gone. That means it's simply discarded. It was never real. So it doesn't sustain illusions. And you stay only in the truth, which denies all illusions can be possible. And so this is the teaching we're studying. It's the only thing to me that makes any sense. Because otherwise you're left with this paradox and trying to figure it out and trying to explain it. Well, why is there such a paradox? Why duality then? The only answer is, well, duality is not true and not real. There's only one truth, oneness. So oneness means perfect oneness. Oneness doesn't mean the kind of oneness where everything, including its opposites, are included, because there's clear contradiction. Okay, well, you have love and then you have hate, and now they're both included in oneness, but there seems to be a split, a clear contradiction. Well, how does that work then? If this is only perfect oneness, this mind of God, then one of them must be true and one not, surely. And so this is the logic that Yeshua saw very clearly, and I think he taught it more clearly than anyone else. That's why he says, that at one moment I started the process of at one moment, because he got it and he understood. Okay, you can't compromise on this. As soon as you compromise on perfect oneness, you're in duality, and then you're stuck in that. And we've been trying to figure that out forever, and that's what keeps us coming back and back over and over and over again. The only way out is to accept oneness perfectly, wholly, and completely. So your mind is once again one, and there is no thought of separation remaining. And he was the first person to do that, to fully merge his mind with the perfect oneness that is God. And so he then became the way shower for all of us. So, okay, well, if I could do it, I was the example. You can do it too. It's possible for anyone if one person can do it. And then he gives us a course now to help us, to train our minds to think in the same way that he did, which is very fortunate for us. Okay, so any thoughts on that?
No, that's all very cool.
Okay, so shall we have a little look at today's lesson? Let's make sure that the right quote. So I've got Marion Williamson's. I love this quote. So I think I've used it before, but it's very profound. So always worth having another look at it. and from a different perspective. You've had a bit of a shift, mystic experience. So read it and see if anything else comes.
Okay. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are the child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, when I was reading it this morning, that thing about shrinking to make other people feel comfortable was something that I used to do. And it's all about shining and, ourselves be seen.
And that this glory is within all of us, if we'll allow it. But the world doesn't encourage us to be glorious and magnificent, does it? Very few people say, oh, you're just so magnificent. You're just, just the most amazing thing ever. And just shine your light on the world and don't be shy. The conditioning from a pretty young age is, no, young man or young lady, get back in your box, stay in place. You're actually small, you're quite weak, you're quite frail, and you're certainly not, this magnificent being. You have all these, human limitations, and then children begin to accept that. The conditioning comes in; they begin to accept the limitations and the glory that they come in with, because there's an access to that in a newborn infant's mind. That's the glory we're talking about. It's not about glorious achievements in form necessarily. Just this pure innocence. I remember seeing my son at 4 months old, I think. We're just just innocent. You go, that's a clean mind. It hasn't got all the conditioning yet. Because 7 years later, that mind is now conditioned, and that's just how it goes. You can't stop from being conditioned in this world. You have to go through that process of conditioning to parents' ideas and beliefs, society's ideas. You go to school, you pick up all this conditioning, and then at some point in our lives, if we start feeling unhappy, then we try and unwind that, and we go the opposite way. And that usually happens, in the latter part of life. It's like you get yourself tightly screwed into the ego, and then you've got to unscrew it or unwind it all later in life, and start realizing the glory that you actually had when you came in, but you forgot. Now it's about uncovering it, but doing it in a conscious way. So not like an infant is just unconsciously aware of it. Now you're consciously aware of it. You can consciously experience it, and you can actually express it in quite a focused, directed way with the aid of this, this Holy Spirit, Yeshua calls it, the voice that can take that inner glory and magnificence and interpret it in the world. You can actually act in the world in very profound and helpful ways for others. And this is what she means when you let your own light shine. Your own awareness of the glory of who you are now shine to others in your thoughts and your words and your actions. And so we shine that out to others, and we liberate others from their fears. We liberate ourselves from our own fear. Fear just being any thought that covers over that glory.
It's like in the Truman Show, where when Truman was young and he climbed up a pile of rocks at the beach or something, and they said, "No, Truman, you mustn't go over the rocks." And he goes, "Why? You mustn't, it's dangerous." And actually over the other side of the rocks was just a film crew or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And then the to restrict him was to create a scenario where it seemed like his father died because of him and
Mm,
drowned. And actually, it was
mm,
all an illusion. And that limitation that he had for 40 or whatever years,
mm,
fear of water, the fear of leaving the island, were all
mm,
fabricated. And it's like, yeah, well, it's just how it is, isn't it? You know, our parents tell us, oh, don't fall, don't do that, it's dangerous. And then it
mm,
becomes in your energy. You don't realize it's there. And yeah.
mm. And you know, the problem is it's like as a parent, you kind of have to take some responsibility. You can't just let a kid do whatever. So as I said, it's inevitable that they're going to get some fear conditioning in their growing up, because you know you've got to sort of look after their physical welfare as well. Um, but it's not ultimate spiritual truth. I guess as a parent, you just okay, well let's try and help the child to grow up in as unconditioned a way as possible, and then hopefully at some point in their journey will have prepared them for the the spiritual journey that will unfold, and they'll be more open to that, so that they don't fully buy it and try and say, well, look, we're only doing this to stop you from hurting yourself physically. But nevertheless, it's a form of fear. There's no doubt. It's a form of conditioning based on this world being true and real. So it's inevitable that you are going to get some conditioning in this world. It's just that's how it works. And then, as later on in life, it's your responsibility to then undo that and realize, well, that was just conditioning. It was all part of a program, a script, and actually, in truth, none of that was true, because I'm not a body, and my entire life history is really not true either. It's just a story. I mean, living in a fake world, which is what Truman recognized. So it was a great hero's journey story, and very inspiring, because he just persevered. He was like, okay, when the more that he got blocked and he couldn't escape, the more determined he was to, like, okay, I'm gonna get to the bottom of this. I'm gonna find my way out. And he had to conquer his fear of water, to go, okay, well, I'm just gonna go. And if I drown, I drown. So be it. I'd rather do that than stay in prison for the rest of my life, fearing, that I might drown. So in the end, it just went, okay, I'm not scared of death anymore. That can't hold me. And that's what broke him free. So yeah, some really great pointers there. And tomorrow I'll actually I think there's one of David Hoffman's a day movie workshop, they call it, on that, where he does commentary. So I'll find it and put it in tomorrow's post and email, so you can go and process it. Okay, so today's quote by Marion Williamson. You want to have a little read of this? Just a few thoughts on the quote. And
today's quote by Marion Williamson, one of the world's best-known A Course in Miracles teachers, certainly had an impact on the world, as it was quoted by Nelson Mandela in his first speech on the day he was released from prison after 27 years. He had obviously read Marion Williamson's best-selling book, A Return to Love, Reflections on the Principles of A Course in Miracles, while he was in prison. And the principles evidently influenced him enough for him to base his first speech on returning to public life and his program of reconciliation for South Africa, when he subsequently became president on them.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know this, but really what happened in South Africa was a consequence of his absorption of these spiritual principles, based evidently because he miracles. Whether he ever read A Course in Miracles, encountered it. I mean, if he'd read Marion Williamson, he would have known about A Course in Miracles. Whether he studied it directly or not, I don't know. I suspect possibly not. But he got it secondhand. If you read Marion's book, then the principles are in there. And then that obviously made a deep impact on him, because he came out and he lived that way. and that profoundly changed the whole country. If he'd come out and he'd been bitter and twisted and wanting revenge, the history of the country would be very different. But he came out in this, amazing spirit of reconciliation and openness and love, and people loved him. Even the whites who'd previously feared, they really warmed to him, and just sad that we couldn't have kept him for 20 years because he was old and he had to retire, and his successors didn't have the same consciousness. They didn't understand these principles. They believed in separation. So whether you believe that one form of separation, let's say apartheid, was whites being seemingly superior to blacks, or the other way around, blacks being superior to whites, or whatever color or race group being superior to another, it's the same thought system, isn't it? And I think he understood that. It's still apartheid, whatever you want to call it, which is apartheid just means separation. So there's the ego right there. That's the separation thought that's directing things. And as soon as anything's based on separation, it doesn't go very well. I've witnessed that in firsthand in South Africa over the last, what is it now, 30 years, I think, almost. So you see, there was oneness that came in that first 5 years when Nelson was president, were quite amazing. You could really feel the country everyone was positive, things were heading in the right direction. It was like, actually, we can do this. And then he went, and his successors didn't have the same mindset. They believed in separation, superiority of one race group over another, entitlement of one over another, and that's separation. And then it doesn't work too well. And so you just see in form how the spiritual principles really play out, and they are true. Separation never works, and oneness works beautifully if you apply it consistently. So as I said, South Africa's history might have been very different if he hadn't read it, because I think he did have a deep understanding. Whether he understood total radical forgiveness, like none of this is real, it's all an illusion, I don't know. But he understood it to a high degree. He understood that it was correct and right to let it go. And that that was his responsibility as a leader of his people, that he needed to lead the way. There was a good scene in one of the movies, A Long Walk to Freedom, I think, was made about him, and he was talking to Winnie, who was his wife, who had a different viewpoint. She believed that the people were angry and they wanted revenge, and we have to listen to the people. So she has an argument with Nelson in the movie and saying the people are angry and we must give them what they want. And he says, no, Winnie, that what the people need is leadership. They need their leaders to tell them that they're wrong. That's what leadership means. She wanted to just pander to the mass psychosis of getting angry and killing. And he was saying, no, this is wrong. And that's why they split. They could not remain married because she was in the egoic thought system, and he'd gone the other way in prison. They'd grown, the poles apart. So it's really a great illustration, the history of South Africa, particularly, that one person like a Nelson Mandela, who stands for forgiveness and reconciliation in the face of a really profound temptation to condemn. It would have been very easy to go, these people have been awful, these persecutors, they've been awful, now we're going to take revenge. And he didn't. And that, changed the course of history. And so we didn't have another bloodbath, and didn't end up going the way of a civil war, which it could have. If there'd been anger and attack, then I guess there would have been a fight, because what do you do when you push and you can go nowhere else? Then the parties being attacked will fight for their lives, because what can they do? And that didn't happen, largely because and then on the other side there was a guy called F.W. de Klerk, who also understood. He had a mission I don't know if he understood forgiveness as well as Nelson did, but he understood that he had a mission from God, and that was to bring his the whole of South Africa into some kind of peaceful, harmonious state. And he felt that was his calling. And so you had a meeting of minds in a divine purpose, and the result was miraculous, really, given what could have happened. And then if you look at Yeshua on the cross, he symbolized this thought system of forgiveness, radical forgiveness, probably more so than anyone else in history has, through the whole crucifixion and then resurrection drama. And on the cross said, these famous lines, possibly the most famous he ever said: Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So even in that extreme temptation, that he's been persecuted, beaten, tortured, killed, he's saying, okay, still, the presence, the Father, the source is still there. And I haven't forgotten it, even in, this extreme suffering, apparent suffering that he was going through. Quite remarkable, really. So his master teaching. So, well, look, I've done it. I've demonstrated that this thought system of forgiveness always applies, no matter what the circumstances are. And you're probably not going to have to go through something as extreme as I did. It says at some point, you're not asked to repeat my experiences. You're only asked to learn from them. So what can you learn from the crucifixion? That forgiveness, this radical forgiveness, or letting go, as I prefer calling it, is always justified. You can always do it, no matter what the circumstances are. So if he could do it, and someone like Nelson had been in prison for 27 years, and his family had been harassed and tortured, and all of that, if he could forgive, and Yeshua could forgive, and many others have forgiven, then so can you. It's possible to let it go. So what's your excuse? And that's the master teaching of Yeshua. His final act in life was to give us this teaching and say, well, by demonstration, I'll teach you this. If the crucifixion had never happened, then that teaching would never have come into prominence. So that was the divine purpose for it. He said, not my will, but thy will be done. A lot of people have interpreted it as, okay, well, God has now made his only son sacrifice and suffer to atone for the sins of humanity. But that's a misinterpretation. It was actually the calling of the Holy Spirit that said to him, well, this will be your master teaching. This will help humanity to free itself, if you're willing to go through this experience. And because he was listening only to that voice, he was willing to do it. Just quite extraordinary. You just have to go, what an amazing man to take that on. When the Christians interpret it, he took on the sins of the world, but he took on this responsibility to do this teaching in the circumstance so that the teaching could come into world prominence. And we're still talking about the teaching today, whereas if there was no crucifixion, we wouldn't be. It was obviously necessary to teach the truth and awaken humanity. Okay, so carry on. This is probably the most powerful example.
This is probably the most powerful example of radical or true forgiveness in history. An example that did change the world, as it's an essential part of the legacy Yeshua left that led to the development of the Christian religion, which in turn has had a major influence on billions of people's lives and human societies around the world for the last 2,000 years. Can you see from these two examples of people who lived so-called great lives 2 millennium apart, that the integral connection between what's been called greatness, which is really just the power to influence millions of people positively, and the ability to forgive or let go of grievances and see only the love stemming from the ultimate source of love or Father, as Yeshua called this presence on the cross that fateful day.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that we're all great. We just have to let that greatness flow through us, I guess.
And it comes from a deep connection with Source. So it's always the people who go deepest into the source that then manifest these so-called great accomplishments. And before they can do that, they've got to connect with their source. So Nelson had 27 years. That's a long time, living really as a monk. It was interesting because the way they lived in that prison was very, very much like monks live. You've got your own room, lots of time on your own, but he had studying materials. They did kind of hard labor towards the end that stopped, but for 20 odd years he was doing pretty hard physical work. So then he would be tired and go back in the cell, and you can imagine him just like, it's a very meditative kind of practice. The work would have been meditative, then you go back, you've got time on your own, and all of that transformed him. He came out of that as a transformed human being, having been through 27 years of monk training in prison. They didn't know what they were doing, but that's exactly what they were doing. Obviously by his choice. He had to make a choice to let it go and not be angry and resentful. Otherwise it would have taken him in the opposite direction. And then Yeshua's example was possibly even more profound, because this really awful thing is pretty much the worst thing. I think what he wants to demonstrate was, the absolute worst can seem to happen to you. You've been betrayed by your friends. You've been, seized. You've been flogged. You've been nailed to a cross, in public display. It's all, humiliation and degradation and intense physical suffering and pain, and then death. And then your body just gets kind of cast away. All of that can be forgiven. So he demonstrated the worst that the ego could throw. He took the worst the ego could throw at him, and on the cross said, well, it doesn't matter, because forgive them, Father, for they don't know what they do. The source is still there, and this can be let go of, even in this extreme temptation to make it real. So that was his final lesson, and also his master teaching of his life. And when we forgive, when we listen to him, we do radical forgiveness, or letting go, then we honor that experience. We say, okay, there was a purpose to that. There was a meaning to that, because I've learned my lesson. If we don't, then he died in vain, because you didn't learn the lesson, and the lesson can't help you. So that's a reinterpretation of the crucifixion in a much more helpful way than Jesus died for us, to save our sins. He died as some kind of sacrifice to save our sins on the cross, which makes all of it real, makes God seem like some kind of, very ogre, punishing his only son to atone for the sins, and like you need some kind of sacrifice. It's just egoic thinking. None of it's true or real. Okay. So we'll continue. Therefore, greatness is not about manifesting.
Greatness is not about manifesting so-called big things in the dream of this world, because it's only a dream, and you give value to the dream. It's to enslave your minds to the ego's rule, which is the belief in separation in all its forms, and remain dreaming. Rather, true greatness is about allowing the source of all life and love to guide us in all our thoughts, words, and actions while we're seemingly living in the dream world. We do this by systematically letting go of any negative blocks to the awareness of love's presence. Guilt, fear, anger, hatred, and all thoughts and emotions that are not loving as we become aware of them. This liberates our minds from their self-created prison and sets us free to love and be loved again. It is only this unconditional love manifesting through our words and actions that is the source of greatness.
Any thoughts on that?
Free to love and be loved again. It's a nice phrase.
And that's really our glory. Glory, a lot of people mistake glory for some kind of worldly glory. you're going to achieve, some great achievement, climb a mountain, conquer a country. If you're Vladimir Putin, it's all about military glory, or whatever achievement. But that's not what it is at all. It's actually the inner experience. So that that mystic experience that you had. What can you say? It's a glorious experience. I think you actually used those words. It's just an inner experience that is transcendent, that's lovely, magnificent. We can use whatever words to try and describe it. They don't really do it justice. So that's the real glory, that that state of mind, that state of being, and nothing else really matters. The so-called glory the ego seeks is really a very sad substitute, a poor substitute for that spiritual glory. So even if you set yourself a goal and you go on a mission and you're really determined and you achieve your goal and you've now got this amazing achievement, it fades very quickly. It's not that deep inner peace. It's, oh, I did it, and then almost certainly there's going to be a bit of a letdown, a bit of disappointment. Oh, okay, well, I've done it, and I really built myself up to do it, and I thought that when I achieved that somehow my life would be different, and then it would all be okay. And then I realized, well, it's just another very short-lived accomplishment, even if it was the most amazing thing. Let's say I achieved my goal. I'd on a worldly level, I set myself a goal to win a gold medal at the Olympics. Take an example. So these athletes work really hard. They train really hard for years, 4 years at least, maybe longer, their whole career. Eventually they get there. They won the gold medal. It's like, and then I can assure you, probably the next day, there's a come down. They go, okay, so I've actually done this now. So now what? And then the ego will come in and say, well, start preparing for your next competition. The next taste of glory. You get up on the podium and you experience the temporary glory of the ego. And this is what we chase. People dedicate their whole lives to chasing this glory. And it's really in vain, because the true glory is not to be found in any sort of accomplishment or any reward. Who really cares? You've won a gold medal and everyone's going, oh, wow, you're so amazing. You have your 15 minutes of fame on the podium, and then everyone forgets you. Like, was that really worth it? If you only did it for that, was it really worth it? No. The answer is, how can it be? You had 15 minutes of glory. Maybe that lasted for a few days if you're lucky, and then you're back in a state where you feel like not good enough, and you feel like you need to do something else, achieve something more. So if you're not enjoying the process and really enjoying every moment of it, the training, the actual process of playing the sport or doing whatever you're doing, then there isn't really much point to the whole exercise. It just becomes it's all ego based. And a lot of athletes, anyone who really identifies with form and goes for greatness on the level of form will experience the downside of it inevitably, and they'll be prone to periods of depression and anxiety and fear, because what they're believing in isn't true, and they can't really sustain them. None of that is a source of sustainable glory or greatness. Whereas spiritual glory, that state of being to experience, although you're not going to be in that state all the time fully, it stays with you. Part of it stays with you. It's always there. As you said, it's always there, can never really leave you. So you can never be without it. So there's no, oh, well, I achieved it and now it's gone. It's still here. I experienced spiritual glory, and it stays with you as a residue forever, as the foundation of your mind, and then you can experience that more and more. You've got a pathway to it. Well, why can't you experience it over and over and over again? Okay. So what is he saying here? It's only a dream. So if we give any value to the dream and to outcomes in the dream, then we enslave ourselves. And the way out is simple. The way out is letting go of any negative blocks to the awareness of love's presence. And that's the only way out of the prison of our minds. Only this is the source of true greatness. Okay, any thoughts, comments, questions on that?
No, that's what I've been doing lately. Just keep letting go.
Yeah, so what the key message of this is glory will come to you when you let go. That's the mechanism for achieving spiritual glory. You don't have to do anything else. It's actually by not doing, by letting go of attachment to things that glory comes to you, not by pursuing things in the world that you think are glorious pursuits. Okay, so I'm going to carry on. Remember this the next time.
Remember this the next time you're tempted to believe in the littleness in which your ego wants you to believe by fearing, judging, and condemning others. And bring to mind the extreme examples of Nelson Mandela and Yeshua to help you let go of those imprisoning thoughts and emotions. After all, if they could let go of fear, anger, and condemnation in such extremely trying and tempting circumstances, surely you can do the same in the face of much less extreme temptations. Yeah.
And that's really the message of the crucifixion, right there. So, well, if I could do it, then you can do it too. I demonstrated it's possible in the most extreme situation. So, what's your excuse? There's no reason not to do it. There's no justification for not forgiving or letting go. Whereas it had been an easy one. Imagine if he was, the ultimate spiritual master, and he'd gone, okay, well, I just let go of, I don't know, the death of a parent. His father died. And there wasn't particularly like anything major that happened for him. Then we go, well, it was easy for you. You didn't have, what I've had. So easy for you to preach forgiveness, but just experience what I'm experiencing, and then we'll see. It's like, well, okay, he's pretty much experienced the worst that a human being can experience, and yet he still was able to forgive. So it just goes to show you that it's possible in any circumstance for anyone. Okay.
So, the theory is simple, but it's a lot easier said than done because our egos resist letting go of these blocks for dear life, because these blocks are their life.
These blocks are their life.
Yeah.
So those blocks to the awareness of love's presence that he talks about in the introduction does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. Those blocks are what the ego is. It's any thought of separation, any belief in separation, and that can take many forms, but it's all the same, coming from the same idea.
Mm.
And that's what he's trying to train us in. So look, it seems to be different, but actually it's not different. It's just one idea. That's the block, your belief in separation. And if you can see that in all of its forms, recognize the one idea behind all of them and let it go by instructing your mind that this isn't true.
Yeah, I see it like source energies flowing through. And I know I'm not an individual soul, but the vision I've had for a long time is like the source energy flows through the top of my head and through my body. And anything that prevents that source energy flowing is what I want to let go of, because it'd be silly to have a block at all to the source energy and all this pure love flowing through. And I know since doing this course, I'm not such an individual soul in my mind now, but it still works for me. So if I get a pain or a discomfort, I imagine that I've got a resistance to source somewhere. And then when I relax and let it go, the pain goes or discomfort goes or whatever. So yeah, that's what it brought up in me.
It's amazing how that happens. That the physical mirrors the mind. Over and over, you see that principle. And then it must be true. And your experience, then you're teaching yourself, well, this is true. The mind is primary and the body follows. So the body cannot be in charge. It's my mind that's in charge. And my beliefs here are critical. What I believe is going to direct my body. It's going to direct my words, my thoughts, my actions, my body. And so this becomes fundamental to my supposed life here. What are my thoughts? Can I let go of the negative ones and just open myself up to the truth, who I really am? Okay, so where are we? Have you read The Theory is Simple? Yeah, I think you read that one.
I think I got up to, yeah, all right. I was going to say, this is why Yeshua has given us this mind training lessons to help us practice letting go of our ego's negativity as we become aware of it in these daily and experience the practice, experience the love, peace, joy, and other gifts that characterize greatness, which such radical forgiveness brings. Yeah, a few years ago, or quite a few years ago, decades ago probably, I realized that if I started to feel like I was getting a cold or I felt tired, that if I just stopped, rested, my method is sit on the couch with a blanket and a cup of tea and then just relaxed and let go, then the cold disappears, the tiredness disappears, and whatever it disappears. But that was quite, like 20 odd years ago, 30 years ago, perhaps. That was like, oh, so a cold or any illness is just blocking the source energy. And yeah, it feels quite apparent because I haven't really been ill since then. So just like letting it flow through is, it's a cure-all.
Exactly. So powerful. Why do we resist it? That source is the source of all life, and it's complete and whole unto itself, and it will re-energize our body, our mind, our lives. So our job is just to let go of whatever's blocking it and allow it to come through more and more. Okay, so that brings us to today's session, which we're in. So shall we have a look at today's lesson? We'll start with the insert on what is salvation. Have a quick read of that. Okay, so this is what is salvation, which is the precursor to the lesson, which we've read before, but let's read it again and see if anything else comes up for you.
Okay. Salvation.
So I think just read the alternative.
Okay. Awakening is a promise made by pure formless awareness of perfect love, that you would find your way to it at last. It can only be kept. It can only be kept. I don't remember hearing saying that last time. It guarantees that time will have an end, and all thoughts that have been born in time will end as well. Perfect love's message is given to every mind which thinks it has separate thoughts and will replace these thoughts of conflict with the awareness of peace. It can only be kept. What was that bit?
The promise can only be kept. Awakening is a promise that can only be kept.
Okay.
That you would find your way to it at last. Promise that you will find your way. to the last. Can only be kept. So it's a done deal. You know, this awakening is going to happen. Can only be kept because it's coming from God or this ultimate source of awareness. And guarantees that time must have an end. All thoughts have been born in time will end as well. Perfect love's message is given with the awareness of peace.
Yeah, it's that conflict, isn't it? That conflict of peace within us. Yeah.
Conflict. So peace is the condition of awakening. Peace is saying peace and awakening go hand in hand. And any thought that is taking you out of peace is then part of the thought system of separation.
Yeah, that's nice. Peace equals awakening. I like that.
Yeah. It's the way you determine. If I'm peaceful, then I'm awakened. If I'm not peaceful, then I'm going the opposite direction. I need to correct myself and always move in the direction of peace. So it's a good arbiter, a good measuring tool, shall we say, of where you actually are. Spiritual journey.
Sorry, there's somebody at the door now. I'll be back in a minute.
It's okay. So the thought of peace was given to perfect love's extension the moment that its mind had thought of war. There was no need for such thought before, for peace was given without opposite and merely was. But when the mind is seemingly split, there is a need for healing. So the thought that has the power to heal the split became a part of every fragment of the mind that still was one, but failed to recognize its oneness. Now it did not know itself and thought its own identity was lost. So let's just wait for Sally to come back. There's a need for healing when the mind seems to be split. So this thought has the power to heal. Mind is still one, but just fails to recognize its oneness. And so we think that we're lost in the dream world. So it's just about finding our way back to this perfect oneness. Just feeling into it. So just drop in there now. And you sit in that quietness and that peace. And the oneness that is always there. These words start to be meaningful to you. Realize that awakening is always here now. And sometimes you can just sit in that peace without needing to do anything. Peace of God that passes all understanding, it's being called. And you let go of your attachment to all the dreams of this world. So you just sit there quietly and awakening is undoing in the sense that it does nothing, failing to support the world of dreams and malice, so it lets illusions go. By not supporting them, it merely lets them go quietly down to dust. And what they hid is now revealed. Foundation to the whole identity of perfect love, on which its message is written, the gift of your letting go laid before it, and the memory of perfect love not far behind. So you just rest in that for a few moments. You just sink into this. Use it as a meditation to go into this foundation or the altar of God, which is the truth in your own mind. Foundation of perfect love is there, on which its message is written. If words fail you, then it's okay, just surrender into them. Come daily, says Yeshua. Let us come daily to this holy away place and spend a while together. Here we share our final dream. There's a dream in which there is no sorrow. It holds a hint of all the magnificence given to us by perfect love. Grass is pushing through the soil, the trees are budding now, and birds have come to live within their branches. Earth is being born again in new perspective. Night has gone and we have come together in the light of true awareness. Yeah. Hi, Sally.
Oh,
This is-
hiya. Hello. We've got an assistant, have we, today?
This is Gabriel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just come back from going out. So yeah, we can carry on and finish our.
Sorry, I keep being disturbed because it's my birthday weekend, so lots of visitors and phone calls and
Okay, it's your birthday. Well, happy birthday for today or tomorrow?
yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay.
There seems to be still.
Happy birthday. I hope it was a good one.
Yeah.
Lots of connection.
Yeah.
Okay. So shall we just continue? It's just that. So I just read a little bit of this. Where are we? So let's pick it up where we left off. Let us come daily to this holy place.
Let us come daily to this holy, aware place and spend a while together. Here we share our final dream, the dream in which there is no sorrow, for it holds the hint of all the magnificence given to us by perfect love. The grass is pushing through the soil, the trees are budding now, birds have come to live within their branches. Earth is being born again in new perspective. Night has gone and we've come together in the light of true awareness.
Okay, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we've been present and still. And just being aware, like you say, like having that gap between the dream and the awareness.
Mm.
And then in that presence, it's beautiful, isn't it? Watching everything and being aware of it all.
Dream in which there is no sorrow.
Mm.
The hint of all the magnificence given to us. And so he's saying here that you can interpret the world. So he's using symbols in the world like grass and trees budding and birds coming to live within their branches. Sort of indicate that this changes your perception of these forms in the world, which are ultimately illusory, but they can with the light of truth, they can seem to be holy, sacred, beautiful, and because you see the life essence that underlies them. And this is really, where the enlightened experience leads us. It's not just about sitting in a deep contemplative meditation and not perceiving the world or participating in the world. It's actually about you're rooted in this deep presence, and this light in your awareness, as he calls it, shines through, and you perceive everything in that light, and it's beautiful because there's no sorrow anymore. You realize everything's just temporary. It comes and it goes, so you don't attach a meaning to it that it doesn't have, but you recognize the life essence that's in everything. And so there can be no sorrow because it's just everything's life. Everything has this life essence. And so the form changes, everything in the world changing all the time, but the life essence that underlies it doesn't change. So there's no cause for sorrow then. You're not fooled by the changing forms anymore. So the earth is being born again in new perspective. So this is what rebirth really means. You're reborn into another self that sees the world differently. Your Christ self now has a new perspective on the world, which is again symbolized quite nicely in the crucifixion. There was a physical rebirth from the death, but it was really being reborn into another self and reborn in perception. That's what it symbolized. It's a great symbol of spiritual awakening. Okay, happy to move on to the next one.
Yeah, number 5. We awaken the world with this awareness, for it is this awareness that has awoken us. The song of our rejoicing is the call to all the world that freedom is returned, time is almost over, and perfect love's extension has only a moment more to wait until its source is remembered. Dreams are over, eternity has shined away the world, and only the state of pure formless awareness now exists at all. Yeah, where it says time is almost over. I had a little bit of a flash. You get those horror movies, don't you, where you go, the world's coming to the end. And it's like scary ones. And then this is like saying it in another way, like, oh, it's good, there's no time. Yeah.
Just kind of shined it away. Think of this light. It's all a dream. This light just shines through the dream and shines it away. Because actually what lies beneath all the forms of this world is this pure formless awareness, or in other language, light. That's the ultimate reality. There's no form in it, just is the light. And so it just, when it comes in, it just shines away the world.
Yeah, that's what I experienced the other day.
Mm.
It's nice to have the experience. Otherwise, it's just theory and you're talking about it. But remember that feeling, right? Yeah, it just was. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a reference to, and then when he says these things, eternity has shined away the world, only the state of pure formless awareness now exists at all. You go, okay, well, I kind of get that because I've had that experience. You know, for that time, the world was gone, it was shined away, and I was just resting in this pure awareness. I wasn't aware of form. So this now starts to make sense, what he's saying, because you had a glimpse of it. And then you can believe that, yes, I could actually stay in that state forever. It doesn't mean forever in time. It means just word forever to try and describe that. It doesn't really do it justice. I just am in that state, and then there's no change, no variation off that state. So
So when you're thinking about other gurus that would go into meditative state for weeks or months, and they had people kind of look after their bodies, do people, I mean, that's India, I guess, that is more that way inclined. But what about in England then? So do people actually go into this state of pure formless awareness? And, you know, I don't know anybody that does that. I know somebody that says he's done it, and he's quite worried that I'll go into it and won't come out of it, which makes me laugh. But do people go into it and then not come out, and their body's just there in that meditative state, or whatever you want to call it?
I guess you wouldn't know.
No.
They did, because they're generally not in the limelight. It's just, you know, it's just happening somewhere. Oh, that's nice. Okay. All right. We're going to finish soon, Gabriel. Okay. So one wouldn't really know. Meditative experience is so personal. It's like no one, you know, if you're in that state, by definition, you're not active in the world. You're not going to really bother with telling anyone about it. So, you know, I've been sitting in meditation for 2 weeks, 5 days, and I mean, you just like, there's no time for you. So you don't know how long you've been sitting there. Just, you know, it might be weeks. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it seems to happen more in the East. Maybe it's just because it's more recorded. But that society has kind of supported, understand it a bit more. You know, like if it happens there, then they go, oh, you know, you've attained samadhi, you're enlightened, and then you become a guru, and people go, okay, well, you know, now Satguru had this experience where for 13 days he just sat. People are like, oh, okay, well, that's a sign of enlightenment. Here they go, well, get off your ass and do something. You know, so what are you doing sitting around for 13 days and doing nothing? You expect everyone else to take care of you or something. This is different perspective on it.
But in that state, there's no time, is there? So could it be that you go into the timelessness, which seems like a long time, but actually is no time? And then, you know, you
Yeah,
say nothing's changed, you know?
yeah. I think they just stay there. I mean, I've had glimpses of it. I've never stayed in it for a long period of time. Maybe, you know, half an hour, where I've just gone, you go into a timeless state and then you come back. You know, okay, well, you know, that was an hour. It didn't really feel like it. But if there's no time and you sit in the timeless state, and it could be 13 days or 13 weeks, 13 months, and it doesn't really matter because there's no sense of time. And you come back from that timeless and go, well, it's as though nothing's changed. And then the disciples are going, well, you've been gone for 2 weeks. And we've been kind of trying to feed you and keep the insects away. And Guru would be like, well, it didn't feel like 2 weeks at all. My perception of time in that timeless state was not, you know, the 2 weeks past. It felt like I've just been in meditation, and I've just come out, and it's like 2 weeks has passed in time. But because time is perceptual, time is about experiential. Time is based on change, based on the idea that, you know, something's now changing. So if nothing changes for you, then there can be no time. It's not an absolute, it's relative. So for that, you know, guru, mystic, 2 weeks is like nothing, like an instant. Which is maybe why he talks about the holy instant. And he says, you know, in an instant you're going to be free, because when you're in that timeless state, it really does seem like an instant. You just go into the timeless instant, and doesn't feel like anything's changed, anything's really happened.
Yeah, I was just trying to, you know, my mind playing with it, trying to imagine how it all works out. If I get up and then find 2 weeks worth of post by the front door and a very hungry dog, you know, I don't know.
It's probably not likely to happen. You probably, you know, I think most people, they might have periods of that state. I mean, it might be worth asking your friend. He said he's been there. Okay, so what did that actually entail? How long were you in for it? Did you have periods where you came in and you came out? Did you just sit like that for weeks?
Yeah.
Whereas generally you'll come out of it, and then you'll be in a maybe still very connected to it, very peaceful, but you're able to function in the world. And that was in certainly in the Hindu teaching, you know, the ultimate sort of state was samadhi, where you were able to function in the world, but in the state of just being rooted in beingness and seeing that everything really is the same.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're walking in the world, you're able to chop wood, carry water, as they said in the Zen teaching, but you're doing it in this enlightened state where there's no judgment, and really there's just the pure formless awareness that's now aware of everything. And so you go about your business in the world on the one level, but on the other, you're still, you know, connected to your source. So even a guy like Ramana spent weeks, maybe even months in meditation at a time, but he came out of it, and he had, especially when he started getting disciples and they built an ashram, and then he was like, well, I don't really want this, you know, I'm quite happy just sitting and being, but okay, you know, this has sort of happened around him. So they built an ashram, and so then he had to sort of have some duties in the ashram, but he took those duties on as though he was an ordinary member of the ashram. He never said, I'm the guru. They wanted to give him his own bedroom, and he said, no, I'm absolutely not having my own bedroom. I'll sleep or meditate in the corridor. And so that's what he did, because there's no ego. He's not saying, well, I need a bedroom and I need my own place because I'm the head of the ashram. He's like, no, actually, I didn't really want any of this, but okay, if it's happened, I surrendered to it. And then he would come in and he'd do his duty. Apparently he'd do kitchen duties, and he'd, you know, you wouldn't think he was the enlightened guru. He just chopped wood, carried water. So he was able to come out of those deep states and just do what he needed to do to, you know, operate in the world, which is, and then presumably went back into them. I think he was always meditating for a large part of his time, but you can actually operate and function in the world quite effectively and non-egoically in a very surrendered way from the state. So okay, so any other thoughts on this?
No.
Okay. So how much time do you have left? Do you want to have a look at the text today? Well, let's do the lesson quickly, because we haven't done the lesson. So let's do today's lesson. Lesson 239. If you want to read that, and then read the original and the translation.
The glory of my Father is my own. The magnificence of my source is my own. Yeah. I've just written down, I am source again today.
Just saying that, really, just giving us different words to say the same thing. You notice since we switched to the part 2, it's really the same message, just over and over, saying the same thing, just in different ways, using different words just to maybe keep our minds engaged. So it's not just the same, but it's really I am the source, I am that awareness, and there's no difference between me and the source.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to read paragraph 1.
The original?
Yeah, read the original and then we'll read the translation.
Let not the truth about ourselves today to be hidden by a false humility. Let us instead be thankful for the gifts our Father gave us. Can we see in those with whom he shares his glory any trace of sin and guilt? How can it be that we are not among them when he loves his Son forever and with perfect constancy, knowing he is as he created him? He is as he created him. Yeah. Alternatively,
okay, and then the alternative.
Let me not hide the truth about me by my false humility today. Let me instead be thankful for the gifts my source gave me. Can I see in those with whom it shares its glory any trace of sin and guilt? And can it be that we are not among them when my source loves this extension eternally and with perfect constancy, knowing as its extension as it extended itself?
Okay, any insights on that?
Yeah, the false humility stood out to me today, that people will say that people used to say, oh, you're very humble to me. But now it's like, well, you don't want to be too humble, do you? Because then you're not really sharing. So, yeah.
Sally, how long do you have? Just so I know.
3 o'clock.
Till 3 o'clock. Okay. All right. So we'll finish with a meditation, shall we? Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Any other insights on that first paragraph?
No, I think the thing that stands out the most is, you can be humble, but just don't be too humble, because you are source, and allow source to be present and be here now. Yeah, that's the bit.
Very simple message. I mean, these lessons are incredibly simple. That's kind of the point. He's just directing us to an inner awareness that's actually incredibly simple. It's not complex at all. Just be that presence, connect with it, feel it, be it, accept it as yours, and using different key ideas and then different words just to point to this, this one very simple truth to help us to experience it fully.
Okay, number 2. We thank you, Father, for the light that shines forever in us, and we honor it because you share it with us. We are one, united in this light and one with you, at peace with all creation and ourselves.
Okay, and then read the alternative.
I thank you, my source, for the pure formless awareness that shines eternally in me and all my companions. And I honor it because you share it with us. We are one, united in this awareness, one with you, at peace with all being and its extension that includes myself. It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, I really, feel good. Thank you. Pure formless awareness, just connecting you with it. I made it more personal, so it's I rather than we. I honor it because you share it with all of us. One united in this awareness and one with you. Peace with all being, its extension that includes myself. So the prayer, it's said in the form of a prayer, but it's really an affirmation. Prayer is really affirmation, saying this is what I am, and I give thanks for it. That means most powerful form of affirmation is to give thanks for something because it's already there. So this is pointing us to beyond seeking. We have it. It's already there, and when we can accept that, then we're enlightened. There's no need to seek anymore. Okay, so any other thoughts on that? Or feelings? So it's not just thoughts, any feelings, because we're going more into feeling into the words.
Yeah, it feels like oneness. The soul in me is in you, the namaste thing. It's just a connecting up, a oneness feeling.
And you start to recognize that feeling as something distinct from the other feelings of separation. And that's what he's trying to train us to do. That feeling, wholeness, oneness, it's this is where he's pointing us. To remain rooted in that and not get confused. The ego comes in with an idea of separation. We have another kind of feeling. We can go, okay, but that feeling isn't true. And this is the thing about, the pure non-dual teaching. It's saying all feelings are not created equal. Some teachers will say, well, all your feelings are equally valid. But this is saying that, feelings based on separation, they might seem to be there and you need to look at them, but then you need to let them go because they're not true. So feeling of separation, it manifests itself as fear or anger, hatred, or attack, jealousy, rage, guilt, and so on. These are not valid feelings. You may have them, seemingly have them, but these are the feelings that need to be let go of and replaced with the feeling, but feeling isn't necessarily even the right word to describe it, just a state of mind, a state of being in this deep peace and rooted in your pure formless awareness. As you experience, it wasn't like an emotion in the normal sense of the word. It's just more like a state that's ever present, that just is, and there's no movement to it. So we move beyond feelings. You might have them temporarily, but the idea is to deny all those that don't serve you. In fact, any emotion, if you define emotion as some movement away from pure formless awareness of perfect love, any emotion needs to be let go of, doesn't it? Even the seemingly positive ones. You get excited about something. Oh, I got really excited. I got thrilled. I got, I was really, really, really like keen for that. I was really desiring that. And then I got it and I felt a temporary sense of satisfaction. These so-called good emotions need to be let go as much as they are over. That's true awareness. So that's where this is leading us, just to the one singular state, one single state of mind that doesn't change, it doesn't waver. And to the ego, that's terrifying, of course, because it doesn't exist in that state. But to the spirit, which is that state, it's salvation, it's awakening, it's coming home. It's like, because that's all your mind really wants. Let's go back into that state and stay there. Okay, so that brings us to meditation time. We've only got, if you've got to go exactly at 3, we've only got about 8 minutes.
No,
So,
I have not go exactly. 10 minutes is fine.
okay, so we can do a sort of a 10-minute one. Can you hear this TV in the background? I'm just going to see if I can close the door.
Yeah.
Close the door, might be a bit better. Can you hear that now or not?
I couldn't hear it before.
Couldn't you? Okay, it's good. The microphone doesn't seem to pick it up very much. Okay, so let's make yourself comfortable. Sitting with your feet shoulder width apart, back straight, cup your hands in your lap, close your eyes, and start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. So breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises and the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Just pausing at the top of the inhale and smile. All this life energy rising up the spine to the crown of your head, pausing. Scan the mind and just notice any thoughts. And any emotions, feelings. Just kind of breathe into those. So you breathe in this light awareness, spacious awareness, pure formless awareness of perfect love, we call it. And if there's anything that's out of accord with that, so any we call negative thought that negates this awareness, or emotion that negates this awareness, just observe it. And so it's like a cloud just covering over the blue sky of your pure formless awareness. And to help you to let it go, you just exhale, blow it all away with the breeze of your breath to the nothingness that it really is. It's going, gone. Pull the lower stomach into the spine, expel the last remaining air out. And just rest here in this deep peace and stillness for a few moments. Just letting go into it, surrendering into the source that is you. There's nowhere else to go, and there's nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. Breathe, relax, and be still. Bring to mind today's idea just as a pointer to the stillness within you. Say to yourself, the magnificence of my source is my own. Feel this magnificent feeling, peace, love, joy, happiness. Words don't really do it justice, but it's an expansive, spacious awareness in your mind. You feel it not just in your mind, but in your body, kind of all encompassing. You can feel like you're just resting in this state, spacious awareness, the light as it's been called. Resting in the blue sky, if you use our analogy of clouds and sky. This clear blue sky beyond the clouds. It's always there, but so often obscured by our minds. This morning, lots of cloud and rain where I was in England, and then it all cleared away, and so it was this pristine blue sky towards the end of the morning. So it's like that with our minds can have these times where it gets cloudy and dark, rains, and it can all clear away. And the truth is, the sky was always there. That awareness never went away. It was just obscured by cloud patterns, which are your negative thoughts and emotions, that are only designed to obscure the clear blue sky of your true awareness, your pure formless awareness, perfect love. So just surrender into that awareness. There's nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. Just breathe, relax, be still. Breathe in and out through the nose. Observe the breath flowing into the nostrils and out of the nostrils. And let that take you deeper and deeper with each breath into still, calm, quiet, peaceful place in your mind. And just stay there in the peace of God that passes all understanding. Say, I thank you, my source, for the pure formless awareness that shines eternally in me and all my companions. And I'll honor it because you share it with us. We are one, united in this awareness and one with you, at peace with all being and its extension that includes myself. So feel that oneness, that ultimate unity with all people, all things, all living things. Share the same awareness, one pure formless awareness, perfect love, which we call extension of that love. Truth, they are one with it. There is no separation, there is no distinction at the highest level. You are one with it, and everyone is one with it, which means you are one with everyone and everything. All life is your life. As we say the word greeting, namaste, which means I see you, I acknowledge you. My true self, the life essence in me, acknowledges and honors that same life essence in you. And so do that to all of your brothers, companions, particularly if anyone comes to mind who's been less than loving towards you, it seems, less than kind. Just remind yourself that they are in the oneness with you. Say, I am one, united in this one awareness with you. And with that pointer, reminder to your mind of its true state, just surrender completely. There's no need to think anything, to do anything for the next couple of minutes. Just breathe in and out through your nostrils. Relax, be still, and allow yourself to go into any kind of thinking, feeling state, clouds. It's all gone. You just blow them away if they seem to still be there with the breeze of your breath. And sink into the blue sky. Remain in the awareness of the blue sky beyond it all. For the next couple of minutes of deep contemplative silence. If any thoughts come in to seemingly disturb this deep peace, observe them and be willing to let them go. Blow them away with the breeze of your breath to the nothingness they really are. Releasing them, going, gone to the nothingness they really are, and what remains is just the pure formless awareness. Beautiful blue sky in your mind, without cloud in the sky. So just remain rooted in this awareness. Awareness that unites you with all other beings. All of your companions, all life shares this awareness. It's the one awareness, the life essence of everything. Surrender completely to this awareness for the next couple of minutes of deep silence. So just gently coming back to the awareness of the body and the breath and the senses and the world. And on the count of three, open your eyes. So one, just breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises, and the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Breathe in and feel this energy rising up the spine. As you do that, clenching the sphincter muscle, noticing all these subtle sensations of the breath and the body, being very aware of them, recognizing that they are not you. It's another awareness, deeper awareness, pure formless awareness, perfect love, we call it. It underlies them. It's still there in your mind, even as you come back into awareness of your sense perceptions. breathe in again, just observing any thoughts, any feelings, emotions that seem to cover this awareness over. And just be willing to release them. Help with your breath. Say, "My magnificence is mine. I claim it now. Magnificence of my source is my own." Blow away any obstacles to this. Let it all go with the breeze of your breath. It helps you imagine it's like a dark cloud leaving you. Notice how the air flows out, chest and the stomach suck back in. Energy subsides back down to the lower stomach and the groin. And just rest here. Count of 2, just notice the weight of your body pressing down into the chair and your feet touching the ground. Notice what you're feeling and touching with your hands. Maybe there's a subtle taste in your mouth, smell in your nose. Breathe in, notice that. Notice what you're hearing in the surrounding environment. Noticing all these things from this very, very still, calm, and surrendered state of mind. And stay anchored in this state. So by noticing it, you can connect with it, setting intention to stay there for the rest of the afternoon and evening. To help you do that, just practice today's lesson frequently, even if it's just for a few seconds. Remind yourself, the magnificence of my source is my own. That only needs to take a few seconds. At the very least, if you've got a bit longer, follow the instructions I've given you in your text message or email for today, which will let you do it in less than a minute, or send you a 3-minute breath break. And I'll send you another one this evening that you can listen to just guide you through connecting again with the source, just interrupting the pattern of the ego, reconnecting the source and staying there. So it is said and so it is done for the rest of the afternoon and evening. And on the count of 3, open your eyes. Just take a minute to look around, ground yourself back into this world, noticing the various objects in the room around you from this very clear, calm perspective. This is the state of samadhi. You're just in your true awareness. It's very peaceful, very loving, and you're not judging or naming or labeling anything. So it doesn't matter what you look at, your underlying state is the same. So practice that for 2 or 3 different objects. Look at something for a few seconds. Notice the awareness that's there. Notice it's the same awareness you had when your eyes were closed. And look at another object, just randomly selected, whatever your eyes happen to rest on in the room around you. Stay there for a few seconds. Notice that that awareness is still there. And again, for the 3rd object, something different, random. Now notice that awareness. And so you're training your mind to perceive that this awareness is always there, never goes away. It's the one constant that you have in the seemingly ever-changing world. This awareness is the only thing that remains constant, and remaining there is your salvation or awakening. So I wish for you that you remain there, and I wish you good practicing of the lesson to keep you there. And I hope you stay there for the rest of the afternoon and evening in this deep state of peace. So that brings us to the end of the meditation and today's session. So thank you, Sally, for that. Thanks for joining, and hopefully see you tomorrow.
I can't make Monday or Wednesday, so I'll see you Tuesday.
Okay. All right. Stay in pure formless awareness in the meantime.
Yeah, you too. Thank you very much.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Okay, so that ends the session. Thanks for listening, everyone, and wish you good practicing. If you're part of the Art of Letting Go program, practice today's lesson frequently, ideally every hour, using the recording I've sent you. I'll send you another 4-minute recording or the text message. Some instructions. I'll keep you connected and topped up, and I'll also send you links to your reading of the text for tonight. We didn't have time to do the text today, so I'll send that through to you, and wish you good practicing and a very peaceful, flowing afternoon, evening ahead. Namaste.